You're listening to the Create What You Speak podcast, where I invite you to come along with me as we shape our own reality together. My intention is to bring out the magic in you. Now let's get started.
Run away from the humdrum. We'll go to a place that is safe from greed, anger, and boredom. We'll dance and sing till sundown and feast with abandon. We'll sleep when the morning comes and we'll rise by the sound of the bird song.
My name is Sloan Fremont, and today I'm going to talk to you about how ununique those self-sabotaging thoughts you're feeling really are, how everyone feels it, and my intention by the end of this show is those feelings are going to lose some of the power that they have over you so you can start to see them for what they really are, which is not true. I have no idea if ununique is a word, but that's the word we're going to go with this week.
Halloween ended, to all the people I pretended to be. Rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace. Halloween ended, to all the people I pretended to be. Rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace.
All right, welcome to the show. Ununique, that's the topic we're going to talk about this week. I really like that word. I don't even know if it really is a word, but I really liked it as a way to continue our monthly magical intention this month of being able to show up and fully express yourself. And I'm recording this today, and right before recording my podcasting mic, I have like this thing, this screen that goes over it, so you know, I hate listening to a podcast and somebody, you can hear them like smacking their lips or something, or, you know, the S or the P goes really hard in the mic. And my little screen protector, I guess the thing just like corroded away, like both at the top and at the little hinge part where it's attached to my mic. So I'm sitting here holding this right in front of my mic today, which is really awkward because I tend to talk a lot with my hands, which obviously you can't see on the show. But so if you hear something come crashing down on the show today, it's this filter thing. I'm going to have to get this fixed before the next one. So, okay. Anyway. All right. So this week on this topic of ununique, if you missed last week's episode, I really hope you do go back and listen to that one, because that was a really good reboot for 2020 and there was a lot of great content in there. I also talked about the new show format where each month I'll be doing a different intention and the shows will be centered on that intention. And I did that because I thought it would be fun. And I also wanted to do it, you know, to help me stay on track with my intentions for each month. And I hope that it does the same for you. So I don't know if you do this, but I set monthly intentions for myself. And sometimes as I get into the month, I forget what those intentions really, what they were. And so I thought this would be a good way we could set those intentions together and then be reminded of them as we work through, as we go through the month, and, you know, really work towards creating a life that we want and really going after and getting what we want in 2020 and beyond. And to add even more excitement to this year, I'm going to be expanding the podcast to be able to create more interactive content with everyone who listens. So I'm just in the early stages of forming that, but I'm excited. It's like, I love creating. Like, I can't not create. Like, I love it. And so I'm excited for that, to bring that to you. So stay tuned for more information on that. And one last thing from last week. I talked about this, about how I've added a way to sign up for my mailing list on my website. That's in the upper right corner of the site, sloanfremont.com. And I've added a free download there for you too. So if you're interested in staying up to date on what's going on with the show, some of the updates I have in store, and just really want to, you know, keep in line with the month's magical intention, please make sure to sign up. All right, so those are all my updates for this week. So let's get into this topic of ununique. And here's what I mean by that word and how it ties into our monthly intention of being able to show up and fully express ourselves. So like I said, this month we're talking about the intention of really embodying and like allowing ourselves to show up and fully express ourselves. As humans, we're all thinking thoughts all day, every day. And I think the tendency for most of us is to think negative thoughts. Like, for whatever reason, that seems to be the default set point for most of us and what comes, you know, easy and natural for us. And so we think these negative thoughts, and I don't know, maybe we're thinking they'll protect us or something. But we know from, you know, I've had so many discussions on this show that our thoughts are what create our reality, right? Because no matter what it may seem like going on all around us, what's going on in our minds is what we either currently see now, which is old news, right? Based on thoughts we thought before, or it's what we're going to see in our reality, right? Like that's the best way to predict your future. See what's going on in your mind, because that's what you're going to get. So, the obvious thing we need to do to begin to change those thoughts, if we want to change our reality, is to think better thoughts, right? I mean, that's the obvious thing, right? But, is that really possible, right? Is that something we can do 24/7? And the answer to that is probably no, but I also think we don't have to do it 24/7, right? It doesn't have to be something that we live like robotically in this constant happy state, right? But in order to, I think, changing our thoughts so we can change our reality is one piece of this, yes. But the other part of this, I think it's important to change those negative thoughts because it feels better to think positive thoughts, right? I mean, it just feels better to think good thoughts. And I know you can probably relate to that, right? You think a negative thought, like feel how that feels through your body, and then change to a positive thought, and it's a completely different experience, right? So that's another, I think, for no other reason that we do this, feeling good, like making that the focus can help to bring us so much, it can bring change as well, but also so much relief. And so in order to get movement in our lives on doing this, and to have things change, again, we first have to change what's going on in our heads. And I think most people live their life thinking that, it's the person that needs to change, right? Like it's my spouse or my partner or my friend or my coworker. They need to change. And then I can be happy. Or my financial situation needs to change, right? Like I need more money, or I need less debt, or I need, a different financial situation. And then I can be happy. And then I can do this, and then I can, whatever. We too easily give our power away and put it on others. And we expect them to change or that situation to change, when in fact, it's what's going on inside of us that needs to change. That's how we get our life to change. We've talked a lot about that on here, and I really hope everyone listening gets that concept. And if you don't, or if you're new to the show, you can go back and listen through. There's, I think, 80-some episodes prior to this where I touch on this topic pretty much in all of those. So you can go back and listen to those. Or if you have specific questions, you can email me, and I'm happy to talk about it on the show as well. But that's really what we're talking about, that basis of changing what's going on in our mind instead of expecting everyone else to change. And it's talking through those things that come up in life so we can learn to navigate them by, first paying attention to what's going on in our minds. And then we do a reset on our train of thoughts. We stop that momentum, right? We stop that avalanche of thoughts that come so easily, so we can start moving in a new direction with this newer energy of knowing that things are going to change, even if we don't see any evidence of it quite yet. I have lived this so many times in my life where I changed on the inside. Even though the outside looked nothing like what I wanted, I really focused on changing how I felt on the inside. I changed my mindset, my mood, my attitude, and I didn't allow myself, I made a conscious effort to not allow myself to get caught up in the day-to-day drama that would be really easy to get caught up in, right? I separated myself from that. And I chose to spend my energy focusing on more of what I wanted and how, those better feeling thoughts and feeling good. And then it's like magic, like the situation in my life just changed. And one of the things that I noticed with doing this is that some of these subjects are easier than others for me. So maybe you feel this way too, right? Maybe you feel there's some areas that just effortlessly align for you, but there's other areas where you get a little more stuck, right? Where it's not as easy, or you try to do the same things that you did in some of the easier areas, but it doesn't have the same effect for you. That's what I have found about myself. Like, because for me, money and my job are pretty easy subjects for me to change. Like, I don't get too hung up in these areas. And when something I want or don't want in these areas, if I want to change those, I'm firm and I know, and I have enough confidence in those areas that I can do it, and it just happens. For some reason, though, relationships and my body are subjects that are a little harder for me, even though I fully believe changing my thoughts are universal, right? It doesn't just mean one area of my life. It's a universal concept that is universal to everything. These are two areas that I struggle in. And on these topics that I feel like are a little tougher for me, what I find myself doing is wanting to start focusing, I focus on what I do want and wanting to change my attitude and my mood and my mindset. But when I try to apply the same approach, or I try to change those thoughts, like I said, it just doesn't work quite the same. I have more resistance and I doubt more. And even with conscious effort that I make, I drift back towards the negative thoughts of, disbelief and like, there's no possible way this is happening for you. Really, what feels like no matter how hard I try. But after some trial and error, I do have a solution for that, which I'll tell you about right after the break.
Thanks for listening to Create What You Speak, now sponsored by Steph Hendel and her Body Built by Love community, where women around the world are realizing that they are not broken and are losing the weight they've been struggling with for years through learning to love themselves again.
Okay, welcome back. So right before the break, I was talking about how when I want to change a certain area of my life, areas that feel a little tougher for me, like for me it's relationships and my body, it doesn't quite seem to have the same, the approaches I take in other areas of my life don't seem to be working the same as they do in those areas. And so I try to apply the same concepts, but I feel more resistance. It doesn't feel like it's resonating with me. I doubt more. And even with that conscious effort, I drift back towards those negative thoughts of disbelief. So I wanted to share with you something that has helped me to soften these areas, which again seem more difficult to me. And my intention is that looking at this from this new perspective can help you too. And so what I learned was that how these negative thoughts that I have, which they seem so personal to me, right? They seem like they only impact me. But actually in reality, those thoughts are so ununique because everyone feels them or has felt them too in their own way. So let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's think about or talk about changing my body, right? Like that. I think everyone can relate to that probably, that at some point in your life you wanted to change your body in some way, no matter what it was. And my initial thoughts for me on doing that are, it's not going to work. It won't work for me. It can't work for me. It can work for everyone else, but not for me. And there's no way this can work for me, right? Like, or even there's this thought of like, who am I if this does work for me, right? Like, I'm so used to having this quote problem that I want to solve, that who am I if I'm not that person trying to solve that problem? Like, am I even ready for that? I think I am, but am I really? Like, because it's like I want to hold on to this identity for some reason, and I don't know why. And so maybe there, you can relate to that in your own life, like thinking about something you want to change in your own body, like, or have wanted to in the past, like the thoughts that came up, those negative self-sabotaging thoughts. And so if you think about that, and what I realized in my own life as just talking with other people is that those thoughts aren't special to me. I'm not the only one who feels that way. I'm not the only one that has ever felt that way. And there's other people that are at some point probably going to feel that way. And pretty much every person starting something new to change their body has had a similar thought or feeling. And just how these thoughts are just so ununique. I'm not the only one thinking them, and I'm not singled out as the only person who feels this way or has this problem or can't do it because of this, that, and the other, because everyone else has either felt it or is feeling it too. And for me to come to that realization, like what I found with that was that, if everyone else is feeling it too, and that I'm not singled out as like the only person that's struggling, like I'm not the person that's wrong or bad, like I make myself out to be in my mind, because if everybody is feeling like it too, then I'm not alone, right? I'm not alone. And for some reason, for me, like being able to come to terms with that and seeing that it wasn't just me, it made me feel more included and more connected in the world than how I often feel. As I guess I often make myself feel like this person who's segmented off, like I'm the person standing on the outside looking in who just couldn't get it, right? Everyone else could get it but me. Like I'm the one on the outside looking in because I couldn't get it, and therefore I must be wrong or bad. Like I always say those are like the internal feelings I have going on. And when I do that, like I feel so disconnected from everyone else. And I don't know if you felt the same. Like maybe you can relate to that, like in one way or the other, just feeling like it was only you. And as a result of that, you feel so disconnected. When we have those feelings, that feeling of, it's not going to work, or I could never do that, or whatever your self-sabotaging thoughts are, like I mentioned above. And we start to single ourselves out like we're the only ones. And I think when we do that, if we feel like we're the only ones, then we feel like we can't relate to anyone else. We feel like everyone else has it figured out, and so we can't relate to them. And when we can't relate to others or feel like we can't, we often start to adjust our behavior based on what we think the others want so that we can fit in and relate to them. And when we do that, we start this domino effect that causes us not to be able to show up and fully express ourselves time and time again, right? Like we think we're not fitting in, and in order to fit in, we think we need to change our behavior and show up with this mask. Like we do have it figured out too, like, right? Like I'm okay, like, yep, I can do it too, right? When often that's not what we feel on the inside. And we show up with this like fake version of ourselves that we think everyone wants to see in the attempt to fit in or to hide, or, to not fully admit what's going on inside of us because of, shame or, scarcity, we feel scared or we feel intimidated or whatever it is. And I think that leads us to living this life where we're just constantly wearing this mask in order to fit in. And we're showing up as this version of ourselves, which isn't even real, right? We've made this up because we think others want to see it that way. And so we can't, we try to fit into something that we were never really singled out in the first place because everyone else was feeling the same way too, right? And as I was thinking about this episode this week, I can remember years ago, one of my friends we were talking about dating, and she had this concept of the representative. And so after a date, she would be like, well, did he send the representative or or was it the real him? Like, did he send the fake version of him that he thought you wanted to see, like the whatever, like overcompensating for something or bragging about or whatever, right? Or was it really him? And so, I think we do that a lot in our lives and in whatever we're dealing with, right? We send the representative of ourselves. We send the version that we think everyone wants to see, like the happy version or the pulled together version or the I've got it too, right? I've got it too. I've got it figured out too. When often we don't feel like that on the inside. And the irony of all that is that most everybody's feeling the same way too. Most everyone, especially if you're in something like together with a group, like if you're in, like I'm in the Body Built by Love course. I've talked about that on here. Like we're all in it for the same reason, but yet we all feel so like we're the only one feeling a certain way when it's absolutely not true. So I bring this topic to you this week, and I associate it to our monthly magical intention of fully expressing ourselves so that you can start to open up to the idea that those feelings that you're feeling are not unique to you. Those self-sabotaging thoughts that you have going on are not unique to you. In fact, they are so ununique because everyone else is or has likely felt something similar to what you're feeling at some point, and you're not singled out. You're not alone. You're not the one on the outside looking in, right? You're part of a larger group of people, no matter where you are, all feeling a lot of the same feelings that you are. And since that's true, like, no one is singled out, right? No one is on the outside looking in, and no one has to adjust or realign themselves into something different so they can join that quote inner circle and not feel like they're on the outside, because really there's no inner circle, right? Everyone is or has felt something similar or the same. And that feeling of being on the outside is really, I think, only coming from inside of us, right? It's not really true. And when we start to see that and understand that, I think it makes it a little easier for us to let down our guard and to relax a little and say, okay, right, I can really be me. Like, I can really show up and ask what I want to ask and express what I need to express and just all around be me, right? I'm free to do that. And those negative thoughts that maybe I've been internalizing about, or, like how it won't work, or it's for everyone else but not for me, or, whatever we tell ourselves, those things can start to fade away and they lose their power because, number one, they're not true. They're just not true. And number two, because they are the most ununique thoughts that can ever be thought because everyone else has thought it too at some point. And if everyone has felt them too, that means they're not unique to you. It's not just you. And when you can see it and really understand that they aren't unique to you, at least for me, they started to lose their power because, again, I realized I wasn't singled out as the only person on the outside trying to fit in because everyone else was on the outside feeling the same thing too. So again, I bring this back to our intention this month of fully expressing ourselves and being able to show up and just be us, right? Not be the representative, be the true version of ourselves that we are and that we want to be. And I think when we have those thoughts that we're the only ones feeling a certain way, then we tend to distance ourselves from the group or from others because we're afraid to be seen as ourselves. We're wearing this mask, this mask that we're trying to, so hard to try to show up and be a part of something, but we're so afraid to do so at the same time. And we're pretending everything's okay when it just isn't. And that really, I think, prevents us from being who we fully are. And so this week I invite you to take a look at those thoughts that come up for you, those thoughts that maybe feel so natural and so true, but start to question those and ask, are those really true, right? Those ununique thoughts that you keep telling yourself about how you can't do it or it's not possible or it's just not for you. Call them out for what they actually are, that they're so ununique. Like I said, they're so ununique, and they are the most ununique thoughts that we can ever think because everyone else has thought them too at some point. And those thoughts of feeling like you can't do something or it won't work, or even those thoughts that it's like, oh, I really want to do that. Yeah, but I can't do this or it won't work for me, whatever comes up for you. Those thoughts that we block ourselves from even allowing ourselves to think, like those good, happy, positive thoughts, because our mind just doesn't want to let us go there. So those are the thoughts that I think they're really important to start to pay attention to. And so this week, if you start to look at that in your own life and think about that, journal about that, notice when they come up, and start to call them out for what they are, is just so ununique. They're just so ununique. There's no power there because they're just not true. And you're not the only one feeling this way, and you're not on the outer circle of everyone else, right? You're not singled out as the only one who can't make it work, or the only one that can't figure it out, or the only one like it won't happen for you. You're just not. That's just not true. Like, that's just not true. And everyone else has or maybe is feeling this way too. And so we all get to, I think, open up to this idea and realize that we don't have to hide from it, right? We don't have to hide from our true selves. And we can show up and really be who we are because everyone else is feeling it too in some way or the other. And I think when we do that, when we don't have a reason to hide, we're just us, right? We're just us. We're that unshielded version of ourselves. We're not the representative anymore. We're not sending that fake version of ourselves. And we understand that it's safe to really be who we are and who our soul is just crying out for us to be, right? Like just crying out for us to be. So let's talk about the magical intention to take away for the week. So in this episode, we talked about how we can often feel singled out by our thoughts, thinking that we're the only ones feeling a certain way, and that everyone else must have it figured out. And so as a result, we can really make ourselves feel like we're on the outside looking in, like that we're so singled out, that there's something wrong with us, that we're bad, that we have to do all these things in order to get back on the inside. And the joke is that there's no inside, right? Because everyone feels the same, and we're just not talking about it. And we put on, I think we put on this mask, like I said, to show up and to want to be accepted and to fit in. But in reality, that can't be farther from the truth, because those self-sabotaging thoughts that you've had, I mean, everyone else has had them too at some time or another. And everyone has felt like that, or at least some version of whatever you're feeling. And so pretty much everyone can relate. And everyone can be empathetic to that. And you can be empathetic to others, right? Having this perspective. Maybe not, somebody doesn't need to, necessarily tell you that they felt that way, but they probably have. And so I think that helps us to approach others in a more empathetic way as well. And when we start to see it that way, that there's nothing wrong with us feeling, and that feeling that we can start to realize that those thoughts they're just bullshit, right? They're just not true. They're the most ununique thoughts that have ever been thought. And from that perspective, really my intention for you this week is that those thoughts begin to lose power over you, that you can learn to laugh at them and be like, they're just not true. And rather than energize them, you can start to see and understand that you're not on the outside looking in, that you're on the inside. Everybody's on the inside. And you're fully free and safe to show up expressing yourself exactly who you are. And one other thought I was thinking about with this ununique, like for some reason when I'm told something is ununique, like that makes me want to be unique, right? So it makes me want to not do what everyone else is doing. So it gave me a different way to look at, like, okay, those are so ununique. Like if they're so ununique, they're boring, right? So I want to be unique. I want to think the good thoughts for myself, right? Right? Like I want to think a different way. I want to be positive and be happy. And then, that can start to be, hopefully everyone can start to think that way, right? Like that totally shifts, I think, how we live, how we show up, and just who we are in the world. So that's the topic this week for Ununique. I'll talk about the songs that I chose before I close out. So the intro song is called Halloween by Walker Hayes. I was listening to one of my old playlists from back in 2016, and this song rotated around, and this is a country song, which I don't listen to a ton of country these days, but I was so glad this song came up because it fits so perfectly with our topic this week. It's called, like I said, it's called Halloween, and it's by Walker Hayes. And the premise of the song is really about him talking about October 31st was like every day, right? Like he was dressed up every day like it was Halloween every day that he was dressed up, not being himself. And so the lyrics go, he talks about, before I even learned to play a note, I was on stage, mastering the art of selling myself at a young age. Fear and insecurity drove me like a Maserati. High school was like showing up at a costume party. I was a comedian, an athlete, a golden boy, a black sheep, whatever I had to be to make the world throw candy at me. He talks about in college, it was the same act, different play. It was October 31st every day. And then the chorus of the song goes, Halloween ended. To all the people I pretended to be, rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace. And I love that. Halloween ended. To all the people I pretended to be, like all those fake versions of myself that I pretended to be, like rest in peace. You served me a purpose for me for a while. You protected me, but I don't need you anymore. And one of my favorite parts of this song, he says, hell, I don't know why I'm like this, but what would it change if I knew? Maybe my parents messed up, but hey, they're just dressed up kids too. And I really love that. Hey, they're just dressed up kids too, right? Like, I think for the most of us, our parents did the best they could with what they knew, right? Because they were showing up with their masks too, right? They were showing up dressed up too, like to be on the stage, to be the versions that they needed to be, right? And they did the best they could too. So I really, really like this song. I think it applies so much to what we're talking about today. So intro song is Halloween by Walker Hayes. Outro song is Bathroom Sink by Miranda Lambert. So I think I've played this on the show in season 1, and I probably said this at that time too. When I saw a song by her, I was like, why is she singing a song about the bathroom sink? But I remember she sang this at one of the awards shows, and it was right after her and Blake Shelton got divorced or split or whatever. And it was so telling of that time, like, of that, like, it was such a good, appropriate song, I felt, for her to play. It was like, it spoke so much without having to say anything. And so the version, or the verses of the song, she's talking about, the premise of the song is she's talking about standing and having to look at herself in the mirror at the bathroom sink. And so it talks about putting on my makeup, putting off the hard stuff, hoping that it passes, fake smile and eyelashes. And she says, I wash my hands and try not to think or dirty up my bathroom sink. And so it goes on. And then one of my favorite verses of the song, though, is she says, it's amazing the amount of rejection that I see in my reflection, and I can't get out of the way. But I'm looking forward to the girl I want to be, but regret has a way of staring me right in the face. And so I try not to waste too much time at the bathroom sink. I love that, especially for this topic, because, I mean, we all do it, right? We put off the hard stuff. We look in the mirror and we see so much rejection in ourselves, like thinking we should be this, or thinking, all these thoughts that we think about ourselves. And then when we're not showing up and fully being ourselves, and then we have all these masks on, and then when we look in the mirror, I mean, we have no choice but to see ourselves for who we really are. And so those masks fall off, right? And then we're left with who we really are. And if we can't show up all the time like that, it's difficult to try to, and I know from experience, and I'm sure you do too, it's difficult to try to show up for ourselves like that in those moments when we're alone. So I think that song is just, it's really, I like the song. I just liked it, and I liked it for this week. So Outro song is Bathroom Sink by Miranda Lambert. So that's it for this week on our topic of Ununique. I would love to know what you think of the episode. If you have questions, please email me, sloanfremont@gmail.com. My website is sloanfremont.com, and Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, @sloanfremont. If you like the podcast, please remember, subscribe, rate, review, tell all your friends so more people can find us. And thanks for listening this week. Remember to make the most of the magic at hand, because there is always magic around you.
It's